Some files are meant to stay buried. This is one of them. We're about to open the dossier on Operation Bolivarian Fall, a file that details exactly how the geopolitical map of an entire hemisphere was redrawn in a single night.
Okay, let's set the scene. The date is January 3rd, 2026. The time, 0200 hours. We're in Caracas at the Miraflores Palace. While the entire city is sleeping, the first pieces are being moved on a board that was set years in advance. The official code name for this was Night of the Condor. And the objective? Well, it was clinical. Internal documents describe it as a precision decapitation strike. This wasn't some clumsy coup attempt we've seen before. Oh no. This was a full-scale surgical military operation aimed right at the heart of the Venezuelan government.
It was brutally efficient. The whole thing was over in just 4 hours. 4. Phase 1, a devastating cyber attack that just blinded the country's entire defense network. Phase 2, elite JSOC forces hit the palace, securing President Maduro and his top officials. By sunrise, they were already gone, extracted to a U.S. naval fleet waiting in the Caribbean. A political standoff that had lasted for decades was over in a morning. The public statement released to the world was, well, predictable. You've heard it before. The U.S. cited the need for regional security and the restoration of order. The public was sold this story about democracy and human rights, but that was just the cover. So if it wasn't about restoring order, then what was the real objective? The declassified analysis we have points to something way more tangible, way more valuable, and, let's be honest, far less noble. The real answer starts with this number, 300 billion. Just let that sink in. Now, what is it? It's not the cost, it's not the number of troops, it's the number of proven barrels of oil reserves sitting right under Venezuelan soil, the largest proven reserves on planet Earth. This slide right here reveals the true core of the intervention. It was a resource acquisition strategy, plain and simple. With all the instability in the Middle East, the U.S. had pivoted to this new doctrine, hemispheric energy security. What does that mean? It means controlling Venezuela's oil to create a self-sufficient energy fortress in the Americas, one that's totally immune to OPEC's influence. And of course, for companies like ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips, it was a $1 trillion chance to get back nationalized assets and rebuild Venezuela's state oil company, PDVSA, in their own image. But here's the thing, even a $1 trillion prize wasn't the whole story. Seizing the oil was absolutely a critical objective, but the operation was also designed to do something much bigger. It was designed to violently reset the entire geopolitical chessboard. You have to understand, for years, Venezuela had become this proxy battleground for competing global powers. On one side, you had Western interests, U.S. energy security, corporate oil claims, and on the other, you had Russia using the country as a military foothold in the Americas, and China, which had poured over $60 billion in oil-for-loan deals just to keep the regime afloat and secure its own energy. And with one swift strike, the U.S. didn't just capture a president, it evicted its rivals. Russia's forward operating base in the American backyard? Gone. China's $60 billion in loans? Poof. Nullified. Their secure Latin American oil pipeline? Terminated. Overnight. This whole operation represents what analysts are now calling the Monroe Doctrine 2.0. You know, the original 19th century policy told Europe to stay out of the Americas. Well, this new, much more aggressive version sends a crystal-clear message to Moscow and Beijing. The Western Hemisphere is closed for your business. Any intervention will be seen as a hostile act against the United States, period. But that still leaves one critical question, doesn't it? Venezuela, for all its problems, had a huge, well-equipped military, armed with Russian defense systems. So how did it all just collapse in only 4 hours with almost no resistance? The answer wasn't on a physical battlefield. It was on an invisible one. First, the human element. Intelligence reports confirmed that for months, CIA assets were on the ground flipping key Venezuelan generals, making sure their divisions would just stand down. Then, the digital strike. Right before insertion, U.S. Cyber Command completely neutralized Venezuela's air defense and communication networks. The war was literally won online before a single boot hit the ground. So what comes next? The official statements, of course, promised a transition to democracy. But the strategy that unfolded after the invasion reveals something else entirely. This wasn't going to be a repeat of Iraq or Afghanistan. This was not nation-building. It's a brand new model that analysts have started calling a resource protectorate.
Instead of a massive, costly occupation trying to build a new society, the plan calls for a very lean U.S. military presence focused on one thing and one thing only: securing the strategic assets. The oil fields, the refineries, the ports. Local governance, that gets left to a hand-picked transitional government, while the real prize is protected. When you put all the pieces together, the economic motives, the geopolitical power play, the covert tactics, this operation wasn't just the end of one regime. It signals the beginning of a new, and frankly, a far more ruthless global era. Let's just call it what the dossier itself calls it: resource imperialism. It's a chillingly simple doctrine for the 21st century. And it basically states that when it comes to critical resources like oil, great powers don't need to negotiate, or use sanctions, or play diplomatic games anymore. They just take them. Operation Bolivarian Fall marked the definitive, brutal end of the post-Cold War era of globalized cooperation. As flawed as that whole idea might have been, the public saw a dictator removed, but what was really seized was the Orinoco oil belt. So the question this whole dossier leaves us with is a profound one. If that era is truly over, what began?